All right, so welcome to the closing mastery section of this platform. And we're going to be going through today the closing mastery philosophy, which really is the 95% of the success that you will be able to enjoy and be able to experience when you get into closing and practicing this as a skill set. So let's dive straight into it because we have a lot to go through. And so the first thing that I want to answer as a question and get you thinking about right now as well is, why closing, right? Why closing? There's so many other skill sets out there, such as marketing, such as coaching, consulting. There's, all these other network marketing or whatever things you want to get into. But closing as a skill set is a skill set that is very specific. And at the end of the day, like most people, if you're anything like I was when I first got into the game, most people don't necessarily have that confidence to, never mind close, but even to communicate with another human being who could be a potential stranger. So it's like, as a skill set for most people, can be quite daunting, can be quite difficult. So why would anybody choose that? And what I've actually realized over, my 5 years experience as an entrepreneur is that all of my results, really, 95% of them have come from my ability to close deals. It's as simple as that. And not only that, but the results that my team have got, right? My organization, majority of their results have also come from being able to close. And when I've taught people how to close, that's when they started to make profits and make money. So I realized that closing really is the best money making skill set that anybody can have, bar none, right? Even if you're in real estate, you are closing deals. Even if you're, doing things on Shopify stores, you're closing deals, but you're closing them on a website, right? It's all closing. So I would definitely say that for me, closing is the number one skill set if you have any desire to become wealthy. It's a high ticket, it's a not a high ticket, but it's a high income skill set. And for me, it's the highest income skill set that we can possibly learn. And think about it like this, like, there's one saying that was said to me, which was, if you can learn sales, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Let that one land. If you can learn the art of selling and closing, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Why? Because you can close, right? One deal that can literally be something that you sit on for the rest of your life. You close one deal for an investor who is willing to continually invest for the rest of your life, and you never have to work a day in your life. You can close one deal with a person who ends up becoming, star employee in your organization. You never have to work a day in your life. There's so many different ways that you could close deals where it just sets you up for life. But to have those lifetime deals, you have to get good. You have to be able to learn the skill set. So this is what we're going to be going through in the rest of this program as well. But closing is one of the best things that you can potentially learn. I promise you that. So make sure you're paying attention to this because I guarantee you this is going to set you apart from the majority of people in life as you become a great closer. So the quote that we've got by T. Harvey Eker over here, who's one of the authors of the book Million, I think it's a million dollar mind or something like that. And I've not actually read that one, but I know that he's the author of that. He actually says that you will be paid in direct proportion to the value you create in the marketplace. I've heard this by many people before, but he's one of the main ones who's known for this. You will be paid in direct proportion to the value that you create in the marketplace. So if you're looking at your paycheck right now and you're dissatisfied by it, then you need to be able to understand and appreciate that it's not that the company doesn't pay much. It's that they just don't pay much to you because you don't have value in that organization. And as soon as you become a great closer, I guarantee your value is going to come up massively because every single organization, what do they want? Right? What does every single organization want? What does every business want? There's actually four main business KPIs that we're going to go through right here. That if you can understand these, you'll know why closing is such a high value, high income skill set. So number one thing that every business needs to sustain the growth is lead generation, right? It needs getting people interested in the offer by giving them their details. The number two thing is customer acquisition, and that is acquiring new customers through a sales process. The third thing is customer retention, which is keeping customers through quality customer experience. And the fourth thing is what we call customer ascension, and that is upselling to existing customers to increase the lifetime value per prospect, per customer and client that's coming through. And so ask yourself this question right now, right? Out of these four things, which of these is the most important for a company slash CEO? And how does closing affect these metrics? Think about that one. Which of these is the most important for a company slash CEO? And how does closing affect these metrics? For me, every single one of them, depending on the business model, is super important. But think about what can happen if automatically the closing rate can go from 1% all the way up to 50% within an organization. How can that affect these metrics for a CEO, a company? And then if you can promise to a CEO or a company that I can take your closing rate from 1% to 50%, automatically you become valuable. And so this is where it comes in. It's like you literally have something that not just the average everyday person is going to want to buy from you. This is more like the business to business type of game that you can get into, where you can start charging a lot more for your services, your products, because you just have that much value to offer. So it's an amazing skill set to learn. And before you think about even getting started with this, really you need to think about how you're actually going to go about this. Because the thing with most people who get into closing is that if you're going to dedicate your time to master a certain skill set, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get good in many different areas at once. So you're going to find it difficult to get good at closing and to get good at product development at the same time. You're going to find it very difficult to get good at them two and marketing at the same time. Right. So instead of looking to master three things all at once, which would take 10,000 hours each, my recommendation is that you focus on the one thing, right? Focus on the one thing which is going to get you the best returns in terms of what you dedicate your time and attention to. And out of all of the things, if you really want to be able to make the highest profits out of all of the business skill sets, for me, it's closing, right? If you can find the right partnership with another organization who's already doing the marketing for you, who's already doing the product development for you, who's already doing the delivery service for you, and all you need to focus on at that point is closing, I guarantee you're going to make the most amount of profits from closing than any of the other skill sets there, hands down. And it's partly because of how you're rewarded and compensated for closing. If you go and look at what happens for people who are great marketers versus people that can close, like it's such a bigger reward in most instances from a lot less work. So what we're looking for with the right partnership, if we don't necessarily have that product already, which really, if you're looking to do anything which is going to give you a high commission and high ticket profit, then you can't necessarily just pluck something out of thin air. That's terrible. You need something that is genuinely going to be valuable, right? And so you need to be able to find something that has, number one, the best company. That should say product in the middle, by the way. That's a little bit of a spelling mistake. But best company, right? Best product. And also the third thing is best compensation. These are three things that you need to look for when you are looking to close. So the thing is that as much as it might not necessarily be the best in a particular area, you need to believe that it's the best. That's the most important part. So it might not be that it's the best in terms of how much profit that they make. It might not be that they're the best in terms of the reputation that they currently have. It might not be that they're the best in terms of all the other available things within that particular industry. It might not be that they're the best in a certain particular area, but if they're the best in something, right? What if they're the best in terms of their sustainability? What if they're the best in terms of how they treat their employees? What if they're the best in terms of their actual compensation? As long as you can believe that they're the best in a particular area, then you can choose that person in terms of to that company, despite the fact that they might not be making the most money, right? You can also go for the best product, where you must believe that it's the best product in the industry. to find the best product, you want to look at what others have to say about it, but also the science behind why it works so well. So you can't just be sold emotionally. You also have to be sold logically when it comes to partnering with a company, because if you get sold and it's an impulse sell that you end up going forwards, that's going to be a short-term relationship. And if you have a short-term relationship with an organization, it means that you're going to have to go and look for the next one, go and look for the next one. And this is the biggest problem that I see for people getting into online businesses, is that they're constantly looking for that trend product. They're constantly looking for the next thing, the next thing, the next lotion, potion, the next scheme, or whatever it is. Like, that's the wrong mentality to have. I'm telling you. And the reason why is because you'll never be able to master in one. And so if you can't master one thing, just like Bruce Lee says, you got to be able to master one kick instead of 10,000. Fear the man who masters one kick instead of 10,000. You got to be able to master with one organization, with one product, with one compensation, right? If you're able to do that, then you will set yourself apart so much in front of all the other people who are constantly hopping from one to the next, because you will know your industry, you will know your product, you will know your compensation like better than anybody out there. And people will trust that because they want to work with experts more than anything. So then you have looking at the best compensation, right? A lot of companies will offer generous compensation to competent individuals. So you want to compare what you can get at the highest level when you look at going for a certain organization. Don't just look at what they'll give you right now. This is the biggest problem people have, and it's the employee mindset, where they're looking at, well, what's the amount that they pay by the end of the 30 days? What do I get then? Oh, I get 1,000, I get 2,000 for doing nothing if I just show up. Awesome. I'll put in the minimum effort and then I'll get my 1 to 2,000. That's a backwards mindset, right? Instead of having that mindset, especially as an entrepreneur, you need to be thinking about, how much can I put in terms of a maximum amount of effort? And if I can put in the maximum amount of effort over a longer period of time, then how will I get rewarded after that point when I become one of the best people in this company, right? Or when I start hitting the highest ranks, or the highest level of commission that I can unlock with this company. And if you see that at the highest level, people are earning not just 5 figures a month or 6 figures a month, people are earning 7 figures a month. If you can see that that's possible already, and that's what they offer later down the line, then that's something that you want to stick with and you want to commit towards. And especially if they have some residual income that you can get off the back of that too. So yeah, this is really what you want to look for when it comes to partnership. Now the thing about sales and closing is that a lot of people, they have this difficulty. I remember when I was first getting started out as well, like I had this difficulty, which was, if I get good at this thing, then I'm going to have such a high ability to be able to persuade people and influence them to do things that, I could choose for them to do, because it's almost as if you got them wrapped around your finger. And I kind of felt like this with certain people in relationships, where I just had so much influence in the relationship where it almost felt like it was too much. And so I had to really wrestle with this for a while, in being able to figure out, how am I able to discern the times where I should be persuading and influencing versus where I can I shouldn't be doing it as much. And it's very difficult to turn off as well. When you get good at this, it's going to become so second nature that it's just unconscious, and people are listening to you, people are doing what you're telling them to do without you even necessarily trying, without putting in that effort, just because it's how you are at this moment. Like, for me to act with uncertainty and for me to not be persuasive is more difficult right now than it is for me to be persuasive. So the distinguishment that I had to make was, what is the difference between, manipulation, where this is more unethical, versus persuasion, which is ethical persuasion. That's what we're talking about more so. Because if you haven't got the morals when you're doing this, then it's going to eat away at you. I promise. Like, you're going to have those moments where you're thinking, should I really be doing this? Am I a good person for doing this? And the thing about sales is that if you can do it ethically, it's one of the most not only rewarding professions to be in, but also it's one of the most fulfilling, because of the amount of impact that you can have on a person's life by giving them a life-changing product or service. So looking at the difference between the two, to manipulate, in the definition, it says it is to control something or someone to your advantage, often unfairly or dishonestly. And so that's what you want to be thinking as you're helping a person make a decision, right? You want to be thinking, how can we do this in the most fair possible way for this person? And how can we do it as honest as possible? What that means is that how can we be as transparent as possible in terms of what our intentions are with that person? And if we have the purest of intentions as salespeople, as closers, then there's nothing to hide whatsoever. And if you're hiding something as a closer, as a salesperson, then you are probably more so leaning towards the manipulation. You are leaning towards manipulation when you're hiding your intentions, when you're hiding what this is really about. But if you can be dead honest with the person from the very get-go because you have that much conviction in what you have to offer, that you have nothing to hide, then that's where it's not manipulation anymore. This is persuasion. So looking at the difference between the two, persuade is about inducing someone to do something through reasoning or argument. And for me personally, I don't like the word argument. Reason why is because if you're a great persuader, you don't actually argue. You agree with other people. But it's the second one says cause someone to believe something, especially after a sustained effort, convince. I'm gonna disprove this one again and show that really if you're good at closing and sales, you don't need to convince anybody whatsoever. But the people who are bad need to do after a sustained effort. If you're good at this thing, then you make it look effortless. So it's about causing somebody to believe something. That's the main thing that I would say about that. That is the truest way of looking at it. Cause somebody to believe something. And if you look at the origin of this, it's also through to completion. So the way that I view it is that unless you actually help somebody make a decision and help them purchase a product or whatever, then you've not persuaded that person because it has to be through to completion. They have to have made a decision. That's when the persuasion has been complete. Otherwise, that's not real persuasion. So, one of the terms as well that we hear a little bit in closing and sales, which is really it's gonna be one of the things that is gonna make or break in terms of you being able to have great closing conversations, is what we call the commission breath. So you need to make sure that you brush your teeth before you start speaking with prospects. And what I mean by that is that you check in with yourself as to what is it that you are really doing and why. Like, what's the purpose behind you having conversations with people? What's the purpose behind you doing your closing? And if the whole purpose and aim for you is to get money off of people, if that's it, if it's just to take their money from their pockets into your pockets to feed you, to pay your bills, to do all this stuff, that is totally selfish. And people will sniff that out. People will sniff out the fact that all you're there for is a sale and you don't give a shit about the actual, you don't give a fuck about the actual person. So then when you have this commission breath, you become repulsive. But when you are having conversations with people because you're coming from a genuine place of service, when you actually want to help them, when you actually want to make a difference, when you actually care about the product, when you care about bringing it into people's lives, that's when people become a lot more attracted towards you, right? That's when they're like, right, this person cares about me instead of my money. Does that make sense? So don't have the commission breath, and you can get rid of this by checking your intentions and making sure that your heart's in the right place. That's really it. So a lot of people confuse selling versus closing. And this was me for a while as well. I used to use them as the same words. It's not the same thing. It's a different skill set. Closing is what we're going to be focusing more so within this part of the program, because as much as selling is important, I believe that closing is the number one skill set that will actually get you paid. So sales is simply a transfer of energy. That's a definition that you want to write down. Sales is simply a transfer of energy. It's nothing more than that, which is why, like, anybody who says like, I don't like the fact that I was sold, I don't like the fact that it felt salesy or whatever, I don't like sales, they're bullshitting you. The reason why is because it's out of integrity and it's hypocritical, because every single day they're selling you. In fact, even when they shared their distaste for that particular thing, that in itself was a sale. It's just that they're unconscious about it and they don't recognize that they're selling all of the time. As soon as we come out of the womb, we are transferring energy. We are selling, right? We're selling all the time because that transfer of energy makes somebody feel a certain type of way, which will then make them believe whatever they believe in that persuasive manner. So selling is simply a transfer of energy. And closing, the difference is closing is about bringing something to an end. So I want you to imagine what it's like to close a door. If you're going to close a door, then you are ending what is there in terms of the path that somebody can take in going forwards, right? So nobody can enter through into a room if you close that door. So that's what it is. It's about bringing something to an end and cutting off all other options by helping somebody make a commitment through decision making. So that's the difference between selling and closing. And like I said before, when it comes to persuasion, it's about causing people to believe something. So you have to understand that belief itself is one of the key components when it comes to selling and closing. So when we look at the word belief in terms of a definition, belief is an acceptance that something exists or is true, especially one without proof. Especially one without proof. See that one? You don't necessarily need to have proof for it to be a belief. But at the same time, the more evidence that we have to support a certain belief, the stronger that belief becomes. And for me, then it becomes more of a conviction, which we're going to go into throughout the rest of the video as well. So looking at it like this, it's that number one. And I also like this second one too. So before I go into that, there's this line here, which is something one accepts as true or real. And like it says over here, it's simply a firmly held opinion, right? It's a firmly held opinion, which means that it's something that is true, but it is not the truth. You can have a belief which is aligned with the truth, but majority of beliefs are actually firmly held opinions, meaning that they're true and it might not necessarily be true for another person. So it's a subjective truth. It's not an objective truth. There's a difference between the two. But at the same time, you can have beliefs that are harmonious with objective truth. So the second thing we're looking at is trust, right? So it's belief is trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. Trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. So this is what we are looking at in terms of belief, right? Important to write these down. So the game about sales and the game about closing is really simple. This is what we're aiming for in terms of this one in particular is not what we're aiming for. This is what we're aiming to avoid, because it's so simple. All that needs to happen in any sale for the sale to occur is that the prospect's belief in not needing it needs to be lower than the salesperson's belief. And so in this example over here, what we can see is that the prospect's belief in not needing whatever it is that they're offering is high. And it's higher than the salesperson's belief in the prospect actually needing the product. When the belief is higher from the prospect than it is from the salesperson, every single time, no matter how good the pitch was, no matter what words were said, every single time, there's going to be no sale. There's no sale. They will not buy. The prospect's belief needs to be lower. It can never be higher. This is always going to result in no sale. I don't care what you say, and I don't care how good your product is. This is going to be no sale every single time. The next one is where the prospect's belief is actually the same as the salesperson's belief. And again, like it says at the top, this is no sale. When it matches and it's on the same level where they believe just as much as you believe that they don't need it or that they need it, there's no sale. It has to always be above, like this. If it isn't above and significantly above, the prospect will not buy. They buy into the gap, right? We're gonna talk about that later on as well. So one of the things that, again, going back to what I was saying with that definition that I didn't necessarily like when it comes to persuasion, because it says it's through a lot of effort. Well, it doesn't have to be effort for the people who are good, because the people who are good realize that the game is about belief. And so if the game is about belief and it's just about having the highest belief all the time, you don't need to convince people. Instead, what you can have is conviction. And you simply share that conviction with another person. You share what you believe. And the more that you share what you believe and you share it with conviction and with confidence, then the person is going to buy into your belief. They're going to buy into that emotional state. not into the effort that you put in convincing the person. That itself is repulsive. Instead, have conviction. That is attractive. So, conviction definition is a formal declaration by the verdict or jury or the decision of a judge in a court law that someone is guilty of a criminal offense. That's probably not the one that we're looking at in this particular scenario. What we're more so looking at is that it's a firmly held belief or opinion. So again, it's kind of like what it was saying about the belief, but this time it's not just talking about an opinion, it's actually talking about a firmly held belief. So it's a stronger belief than just any regular belief. Imagine this is, if something has conviction to it, then this is somebody, they don't just believe it out of little proof to no evidence. This is somebody who has got this belief now, and now they've gone to seek the statistics and the evidence and the scientific research and data to prove that what they believe is actually the truth, right? So that's a conviction. And one of the things that I learned early on in my sales career as well is that nobody likes to be sold to. People hate to be sold to. So if you ever give somebody the impression that they're being sold to, and that they don't actually want what you're offering, and it feels as though that you're putting in that effort to get the sale, as soon as they get that impression, it's actually a subconscious trigger that kicks in where their reptilian brain starts to activate, and the fight or flight response is then activated. And so they will either fight you or they will run. One of those two things is going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean that if somebody's in that state, that you can't take them out of that state. There is still a way for them to shift in terms of how they see you, whether they're being sold to or not. But as soon as they get that impression that I'm being sold to, boom, the fight or flight kicks in, and they're going to either be defensive or they're going to run away and say that, no, I don't need this, hang up the phone, whatever it is. But if you put something into a buying state, because everybody likes to buy, if you can put something into a buying state, which we're going to further on as well, then you're not going to have a single problem when it comes to selling and closing whatsoever. So that's that. And then one of the things that is the make or break when it comes to sales is also about your focus. Spoke about this a little bit before in terms of where you focus your attention in the sale. Are you focused on the person's money in their pockets, or are you focused on them and helping them? So, there's a prayer, which is, if you can get this as a salesperson, I'm telling you, it's an absolute weapon to have in your tool belt to have this prayer, which is, God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference between the two. If you can really sit with that one and feel the importance of it and understand how much it affects your attitude in sales, then this is everything. So as we can see over here, there's certain things in life that we cannot control. In sales that we cannot control. One thing that we cannot control is we can't control outcomes. We cannot control what is going to happen in terms of the end result, the effect. But what we can control is more so the input, right? And the cause. We'll go into that later on. So we can't control the outcomes. We can't control other people. We can't control how they react. Human beings are programmed in a certain way. We can't control what's going on with that. So we can't control how other people are going to be behaving. We can't control the seasons. We can't control the winter, the spring, and the weather. We can't control things like this. And so there's no point putting your focus and attention on the things that you can't control, just like the prayer said. That is going to be a waste of energy. And also you have no control over your own emotional state. So by focusing in on that in terms of having things outside of your control affecting how you feel, then that's going to mean that you're out of control yourself. You don't want to be out of control. So in how you can self-govern and self-manage well is by focusing on what we call the controllables. And if you know that you can control these three things in sales, one of them is your pitch, how you actually say what you say to the other person, not just what you say, but how you say it to the person. Do you say it well? Do you say it with conviction? Do you say it in a way where you're clear in what you're saying? The pitch is one thing that you can control. The second thing you can control is your pace. And this really means not necessarily how fast you're speaking, but what you're doing in between times of every single call. And so some people look at, doing 100 dials in a day. Some people look at doing 200 dials in a day and be like, that's fucking crazy. But it isn't. It's just that those people that don't do those high numbers, they're doing some stupid shit in between, which means that they're wasting time. They'll be looking at their phones. They'll be scrolling social media. They'll be speaking with people about random stuff that doesn't mean anything. It's not important. They'll be sat there idly doing nothing. This is everything that's going to diminish your pace. You need to be fast, condense the amount of effort into a shorter space of time, and then do more work than another person, which is going to allow you to just get better results because you're giving yourself more opportunities to succeed. So somebody who's the same level of effort versus somebody who has same level of skill versus somebody else who has the same level of skill, if one of them is going faster than the other, who's going to win? Every single time, it's going to be the person who's just taking more shots, of course. So pitch, your pace, and the third thing is your attitude. You need to make sure that you have a high level of energy and attitude during the process, because people will not want to buy from you. People will not want to work with you if your attitude stinks. If your attitude is one of feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like a victim, feeling like you're unhappy, feeling miserable, man, people don't want to spend time with you. Why would anybody want to buy from somebody who's miserable? Like it never happens like that. You got to make sure that you have a cheerful and a high gratitude attitude. That is the main thing that you got to focus on. And if you can maintain this attitude, never let it drop during that day by what you do in the pre-ritual, the post-ritual, which we'll go into later on, then yeah, it's going to be super, super helpful and be a superpower for you. Now I want to go through what we call the perfect sale. So the perfect sale is what Jordan Belfort describes. I never came up with this idea. This is what Jordan Belfort, the guy in The Wolf of Wall Street, describes. It's actually the straight line. This is the perfect sale. But if you aim to have the perfect sale with every single prospect, chances are what's going to happen is that you're going to miss a lot of sales, because most people are just too uncomfortable with a straight line. It's too quick for them. They need to have a little bit more of this, where they can go off of the straight line and they can go away from it. And there's two ways that would really happen, is that you start talking a bit too much about personal stuff in terms of their family life, where they're from, what they like doing, where they're traveling, shit like that. That's all personal. And then the other side of it is them speaking too much about business. That's another thing that can happen too, where you end up going into so much of the details about one particular area, which is to do with the sale. And if that ends up happening and you just ask loads and loads and loads and loads of questions, that's also going to take you away from closing the sale. Looking at the straight line, this is the close. This is you asking them for the close right up front. Do you want it or not? Most people are not going to be able to go that quick. And so there's going to be this persuasion that happens in the between lines over here. So the dashed lines are where it's acceptable for you to have a conversation in. It's acceptable for you to go a little bit away from the close. But what's unacceptable is for you to go to what we call Pluto. Pluto exists on both sides. Pluto is where you have been speaking about the person's dog for about 15 minutes, when really the conversation is only a 30-minute conversation that has been booked in. And then the other side of it, you're talking about things to do with business that doesn't really need to be had in this conversation. What needs to happen is it needs to be a close. There needs to be some closing questions that are asked, and potentially they might even push back. You might get a couple of rejections here and there, but that's fine. Ultimately, what's going to happen is that you're going to go to the end point, which is here, and that's where the prospect buys. So your job as a salesperson is to get them from here to here. How they get there, this is a little bit up to them in terms of how they want to go. You can't control every response that they have. They're not going to just go straight to the end point like this unless they're the absolute perfect prospect who's in so much pain. most of the time what's going to happen is that you're going to go through this little bit of a journey with them, but you've got to make sure that you can elegantly bring them back down to this straight line. That doesn't mean that as soon as they bring up their dog that you ignore it and you just ask them a closing question. What it means is that you can acknowledge what they say, make them feel heard, make them feel special, but still be good at bringing them back towards the straight line. This is the idea. The next thing is about the 6 emotional needs. So, as Zig Ziglar said, one of the greatest closers of all time, who wrote the book Secrets of Closing the Sale, which I'd highly recommend. He says people don't buy for logical reasons. They buy for emotional reasons. They buy for emotional reasons. So if you're looking to logically persuade somebody, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen. You can help somebody make a logical decision where they can justify how they feel afterwards, but they're going to buy into the actual thing in the first place through emotion. So there are 6 emotional needs, which are very important for you to remember. Make sure you got these written down. Number 1 thing is certainty. That's the assurance that you can avoid pain and gain pleasure through safety and security. The second thing is the uncertainty. So it's the complete opposite. It's like, how is that even possible? Well, it is because you have certainty when, for example, I'm in a house right now, and if I didn't know that the ground was going to be keeping me on this floor, and at any moment it could just fall through, I'd be feeling so stressed. I'd be feeling so anxious. I need to have that certainty that everything is secure the way that it is. But I also need to have variety and uncertainty. If I'm experiencing the same mundane shit every single day, the same boring lifestyle, I had a dirty analogy to come to mind, but I probably shouldn't say. But maybe you can guess where I was going with that. But imagine just having the same boring everyday food. Everyday food. Like if you're having the same pasta, the same cheese, like it'd be horrible, right? You got to have some variety as well. So that need for the unknown, that change, that adventure, that's another human need that we have. The third thing is significance. Significance is the feeling of being unique, of value, important, special, of needing, right? Independence. That's where a person, they need to be like given acknowledgement. They need to be the person who is shown to have got great achievements and things like that. Connection and love. That's a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. Some people really care about their families. Some people really care about, being able to have that intimacy in their life. Connection and love is a strong emotional need. Fifth one is growth. That expansion of capacity, capability, or understanding, being able to grow as a human being. This is something that we all have, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And so some people will already have that one in place, but if they don't, that's probably going to be one of the ones that they really do care about. And then the final thing is contribution. And that's where people who are very ambitious, people who are not just looking at things selfishly, but actually have selfless intent, they tend to have more of a need for contribution, which is a sense of service and focusing on helping and giving to and supporting other people. So these are 6 emotional needs. It's important to understand them because once you have those emotional needs, then it transfers to what we call the 7 beliefs. Now, the 7 beliefs, the way that it works is that if your prospect has these 7 beliefs before you go to close, before you actually ask them that closing question, every single time they're going to buy. Every single time they're going to be a 10 out of 10 ready, going to buy if they have these 7 beliefs. And if they give an objection, if they're like throwing out something as feedback, then that's because they don't have these 7 beliefs. The 7 beliefs creates what we call an objectionless close. Now, you can practice the 7 beliefs and still get objections, but the level of objection handling in comparison to what it'd be like without these 7 beliefs is going to be so much easier. I guarantee you this. So it's fine to get objections because that's just a natural way that people buy things, is that they will have like the sense of, I've made a stupid decision before and I don't want to rush into something again. Let me throw in an objection just to make sure that this isn't stupid. And if it's handled well, then I'll go with it. But I'm sold anyway. That's the type of conversation that's going on in your prospect's mind when you give them the 7 beliefs. They're already sold before the objection. They just need that little bit of reassurance. So here's the 7 beliefs. The first one is pain, right? There's pain, desire, doubt, cost, money, support, and trust. And I'm going to go into detail with every single one of these. So the first one we're looking at is the gap. There has to be a gap between the current state of where the person is versus the desired state. The island that they're currently on versus the heaven island that they want to be on. And the pain belief is only created when the prospect believes that there is a gap between the current state and the desired state. If they believe that they're already on that heaven island right now, there's no pain belief. And so because they don't believe that there's a pain and a gap, then they are not going to feel the urgent need to get rid of that pain, because humans want to move away from pain and towards pleasure. The next one is desire. So desire is very similar to the pain, but here is where the prospect must believe that solving this problem and closing the gap would yield a better future situation, which would mean that they need to believe that by actually closing the gap, then the desired heaven island that they're going to get to is going to be a better future situation than it would be without closing the gap. That is what the prospect needs to believe. And so the way that you want to paint the heaven island with your prospects is that it's actually a better heaven island than it is if they weren't going to close that gap. And so here's what the best salespeople and the best closers do, is that they don't just identify that there's a gap, but they actually widen the gap. They make the current state seem actually further than it is, away from the person's desired state, and they make the desired state seem further than the current state. And so they widen both sides. They make both sides seem even worse than they actually are. That's what somebody does if they're a great salesperson. And so you're serving that person. And it tends to be, it's not that you're actually widening the gap. You're more so bringing them to reality, because people lie to themselves about their current state. They have to, otherwise they'd freaking kill themselves. And so what you need to do is you need to bring them closer towards where they actually are. The next one is doubt. Doubt is looking at, and it eliminates what we call the DIY objection, where the prospect believes they can't fix the problem, or to do so would be an unnecessary waste of resources, time, and money, given the other avenues available, aka your offer. And the thing about the doubt is that there needs to be doubt as well as belief at the same time. There needs to be doubt as well as belief at the same time. Because if they believe that it's impossible to get to the desired state, then it's not gonna be something that they'll buy into, because they're just like, what's the point? The prospect still needs to believe that it's possible, but they also must believe that it's impossible to do it with themselves. They need to believe that it's only possible if they're to do it with you. And that's what we call the buying pocket. The buying pocket is where they're in this place of combining both the belief of I can't do it myself, and if I was to do it, and it would be possible because I believe it's possible, it would only be possible with you. That's the buying pocket. That's where you want your prospects to be. The next thing is the cost belief. The cost belief is where your current and future pain of doing nothing has to be far greater than the pain of time and money into your offer. And so as this graph shows, we have the perceived pain on the left-hand side over here, and it goes higher over time. Then we have the action threshold. So think about it as this is a number. This could be like 10 out of 100. And once it reaches this 10, that's when the person takes action, because it's too much pain for them to not do anything. So what needs to happen is that you need to be able to help them feel this pain of what happens if they do nothing. And that pain of doing nothing has to be a lot lower than the pain of the time and money investment. So that perceived pain of the time and money investment, just like it was with the belief, that needs to be lower than the action threshold of the current and future pain of doing nothing. That's another way to look at the levels of belief. So this could be your belief and this is theirs, but you need to make it that this belief that is your belief is also their belief too. Money. This is the next one. This is really simple. The prospect needs to have money. The belief that the prospect has the resources and the willingness to solve the problem. If they don't have the resources, that's a condition, not an objection. There's a difference between the two. An objection is when they are giving you feedback that what you've shown them is not actually as valuable as you've said it is in comparison to the money that they've got to pay. If it's a condition, they just don't have the money. There's not much you can do about that one. You can do something about an objection. And if they don't have the willingness, that goes back to that goes back to there not being enough cost. That's all it is. Like I said, it goes back to the value. It goes back to there not being enough cost belief that's been built up. So you need to make sure that they also have that willingness. The next thing is the support, right? The support belief is that the people around them, their parents, partners, friends, whoever, will support them in fixing the problem. And so there's a way that we can ask certain questions to figure out, for example, who is going to be supporting you during this journey, and will they be on your side? Do you think? And if they say yes, awesome. If they say no, that's where you can potentially handle that objection before it even comes up. So the support belief is another one. And then there's a trust. So trust is not just about how much they trust you, but it's also about how much they trust the method of your success in the product. Do they see your solution as clearly different, unique, and superior than similar methods that they've tried in the past? This eliminates the I've been burnt before objection that helps them logically justify why this is going to be different. So they need to trust both, e.g. the God-Life business model, what we have as our solution, where the key to success with business online for a new entrepreneur creating freedom must include high ticket, automation, and impact. The only way to do that and to have that type of business model that we know is with the God-Life business model. And that's where people are like, yeah, makes sense. I have to do the God-Life business model. You see, you sold the solution first and then you sold the product. That's what has to be done. So those are the 7 beliefs. And the next thing is what we call inception selling. And this is something that I've actually come up with myself. Everything else that you've seen, I've learned that from some of the greatest salespeople and closers out there. But this is something that I came up with through my experience in really understanding selling at a higher level. And so inception selling comes from the movie Inception, one of my favorite movies of all time. First time I watched it, I didn't understand it. Second time, I got it a little bit more. I understood that what was going on with the dreams, the subconscious, the psychology. And then as I started to watch it more and more, I've probably watched it about 6 or 7 times now. I realized that this movie is a movie about sales. Really. When you understand sales, you understand that this is all this movie is. It's about them persuading another person to have an idea and to put a belief in their mind. The idea about inception, when they break it down, is that they say that inception is possible. Because inception is you planting an idea that didn't come from that person originally into their subconscious mind so that they will act upon that idea through divine inspiration and feel it as being their own idea. The difficulty with it and why they say it's impossible is because the person will be able to detect that the idea didn't come from themselves. That's why they believe it's impossible. But I believe, just as they believed, that inception is possible, and they demonstrated that it is impossible. And just like with the 4-minute mile, if one person has been able to do it, there's no reason for why anybody else can. And so inception selling for me, this is the perfect sale. This is where, this is like my straight line, for example. The perfect sale where you have been able to get somebody to believe that your product is their solution, not because it came from you, but because it came from their thinking. It came from their inspiration. So in the movie, like we see that I say Jordan Belfort. In the movie, we see that Leonardo DiCaprio, he's explaining to this other guy that there are other agents who are trying to kill him. And this is his actual subconscious, which is protecting him from Leonardo DiCaprio, who is the one who is an invader in his mind. But Leonardo DiCaprio manages to come in, act like he's the head of security for him, And that way he gets him on his side. And at that point, he is able to instruct him, advise him, and guide him towards getting this divine inspiration, this idea. So if I was you, I'd definitely watch this movie to understand this a little bit more. But what ends up happening is that they plant an idea into his mind that says that he should take over the company, and pretty much it's a business huge deal that ends up happening because his dad passed away just before this happened. So yeah, absolutely incredible movie, and this is what we can do with our prospects too. If we do inception selling, where you're giving somebody an idea that they believe to be their own. And in the movie, like what ends up happening is that they prove this inception beforehand in a bit of a dark manner where he lets his wife he uses his wife as the first person ever to use that inception on, but it goes wrong. And so this is where, again, it's going back to that thing about ethical selling, where you really have to understand that becoming a salesperson, becoming a closer, you're going to have such great power. You're going to have so much power of a person's life because now you can plant an idea into their mind. And what happens with an idea is that just like any seed, it will grow to become more than just a seed. It will grow to become a tree. It will grow to have roots. It will grow to become so strong and then literally determine an entire person's personality and identity in their future. So if you're going to give somebody an idea, you best believe and make sure that the idea that you give to that person is going to be good for them. And that's something that they genuinely want. If it isn't, and it's not going to be good for them, it's not something they genuinely want, you cannot give them the idea. You cannot inception sell them. And so you have to know that. In this movie, he breaks this because he gives her an idea which he didn't necessarily think that was going to turn out the way that it did, which for me, that's totally fine. Like if you give someone an idea and you both believe that it's going to be good for both of you, that's fine. But if you can perceive that there's going to be some things that are going to be terrible for you in terms of all the scenarios being weighed out, then that's where it's more difficult to say that, right, this is not something that we should go forwards with. But if both of you can see that it's going to be the benefits will outweigh the costs, you should go for it. Unfortunately, what happens here is the worst case scenario plays out. She kills herself and she falls off a building. So just have that bear in mind as well, that you're going to have such great power with this inception selling. Like it says, an idea is like a virus. It's resilient, it's highly contagious. And even the smallest seed of an idea can grow. It can grow to define or it can grow to destroy you. So with great power comes great responsibility, as it says in Spider-Man. I had to throw that in there as well for any of the Spider-Man fans. You all know what Uncle Ben says, and he's absolutely right. You are going to have so much power from having the ability to influence, the ability to sell, the ability to close, the ability to really impact people. So much power. But it comes with a lot of fucking responsibility, I'm telling you. Which is why, like, before I even show this to people, this closing presentation, I want to even like check in with them and see like they're not a freaking psychopath, because like you can do some really wild shit with this this power. So yeah, the next thing is about leading the prospect. So you got to understand that if you are the one who is the expert in the conversation, prospect is coming to you and they need help, it cannot be that they're taking over. I mean, look at this particular scenario, because this is what's happening in sales conversations. People should be coming to you if you're a closer anyway. At this point, you built the 7 beliefs and everything like that. Or even before that, right? And somebody just comes in as a lead in your business. This person has come to you. And so if they've come to you for help because they're in pain, just like with this person who's drowning right now, like they cannot be the ones who are telling you what to do. They can only scream, help, help, help. I'm drowning. I'm drowning. Help me. That's all they can say is help me. Other than that, they cannot tell you how to help them. They can't, they're not even in the frame of mind to be able to do that. And so if you expect that the person, even if they're older than you, even if it seems as though they got more experience in the area, even if it seems that they're smarter than you, whatever, you can't expect that this person has the best solution, because they're the one who are operating from the problem consciousness. It was Albert Einstein who said that no solution can be created from the same level of consciousness as to which it was created. And so you're the person from a higher level of consciousness because you're the person who has the solution. You're not drowning right now. They're drowning. And so if they're drowning and you're not, then you need to make sure that you are leading the prospect. It's almost as if you're going into them, you're giving them a raft, and the raft is a color pink. And they're like, I'm a man. I don't go into pink rafts. I only go into orange rafts. Come back to me with something else. What's going to end up happening? Person drowns anyway. So by you not leading your prospects, by you not taking control of the conversations, you're letting people drown. That's how you have to view it. You are letting people drown by not leading prospects. So don't feel as though this is something that you want to avoid, right? Don't feel as this is something that they don't want. This is something that they freaking need. And if they don't, and they're not actually drowning, then go and move to somebody who's actually drowning.
This person who's coming on the phone.
My mentor here, Balaj, he actually has a great Instagram video over here. He talks about it a lot in his content, which I would highly recommend watching too, is one of the best high ticket closers in the game right now, with what he's able to do. And he explains it perfectly. So I'm gonna play this video so you can watch this too.
Phone, they're like a civilian, and we're like the trained Navy SEAL. We're the experts, we're the professionals. We read the books, we have the mentors, we do the trainings, so we can't expect them to know what to do. We can't expect them to lead us. We can't let them ask all the questions and we're on our heels answering the questions because the person asking the questions is the leader. We can't expect them to raise their energy or raise their knowledge or any of that stuff to our level. We have to lower ourselves to their level initially and then build up together. And that has always been effective.
There you go. So that's exactly what he's saying. You got to be able to be the one that's taking the lead, asking the questions. Whoever is asking the questions in a conversation is in control of the conversation. So the next thing is about reframing rejection, right? So if we're going into sales, a lot of people say that, I've got this fear of rejection. I don't want people to say no to me. I feel like it's some freaking trauma that I've had when I was from younger and being rejected or whatever. Like, you got to get that belief out of your head as soon as possible, because if you are unable to get somebody to open yourself up to a no in a conversation, then like you're just never going to be able to sell whatsoever, because you won't speak to people. So you need to be able to reframe rejection. Right. And the way that we do that, and this is again by our mentor Balaj over here, the way that he gives this reframe is saying that there's actually no such thing as rejection. There's only feedback. And when he had this shift, this paradigm shift, that there is no such thing as rejection, only feedback, he realized that every single time that he got a no, he was able to build his asset column, because now he had all of these different learning lessons as to what would help him to avoid approaching the next person the way that he approached the previous. So now he has feedback. And if he can see that there's common trends with this feedback, he can make adjustments to eventually having the perfect formula, the perfect recipe for his market. So this is what you get every single time you get a no. You get paid in feedback. The second thing is that you don't just get paid in feedback, but you also get paid in money. You don't get paid for the yeses in sales. You actually get paid for the no's. Mind-blowing, right? The reason for why people have these big checks is just simply because they got more no's than anybody else, not because they got yeses. And so if you get like one person who comes in and they get their first sale, and then they get their second one, and you're like, wow, what is going on over here? This is crazy. Recognize that they're not getting paid for the effort that they put in with that opportunity. They're getting paid for everything that happened years beforehand, in that some life experience allowed them to get rejected over and over and over again, to the point where now they've implemented that feedback and now they're getting paid for the yeses. That's what happens. And so we can actually calculate how much you get paid per no. And this is going to help you reframe your rejection, because if you can instead look at it like, oh, I just got a no, thank you for the no, I just got paid. And I'll take feedback too if you're willing to give it. So what you want to be able to look at is, you actually, in your opportunity, you might be making profit per sale of 5,000 from one sale. But In order to make that sale, you have to speak with 101 people. So 5,000 divided by 100 equals £500 per no. Because there's only one person who sold. You don't get paid for the yeses, you get paid for the nos. 5,000 divided by 100 equals 500 per no. And the way that we calculate this is simply total profit per sale divided by number of rejections equals your profit per no. Simple. And this means that you can literally celebrate the no's every single time because you literally just got paid. Make sense? So look at the greatest of all times in terms of not just salespeople who, because every single entrepreneur really is a salesperson. Every entrepreneur is an artist who can sell and market. That's the difference between artists and entrepreneurs. So when we look at the greatest entrepreneurs, the greatest salespeople, we've got people like the KFC guy. What's his name again? Colonel Sanders. Yeah, I forgot that. But the KFC guy, he failed for 1,009 times first, but he didn't lose hope. He kept going. He got 1,009 rejections, and he just used that as feedback to then make the perfect formula and give people the perfect recipe. And now, because of that, we have KFC in every single city of the world. Thomas Edison, if you're in a room right now that is lit up by light, it is thanks to this guy, the man who created the light bulb. He said that he didn't fail 1,000 times, 10,000 times when he was interviewed because somebody asked him, how did you keep going? How did you keep going? Getting rejected every single day, getting this failure. He said, no, I didn't find 10,000 no's. I didn't receive 10,000 ways. I had a different attitude towards it, which was I felt every time I was failing, quote unquote, I was getting one step closer to this yes. I was getting one step closer to this actual method of making it work. It's the same thing with the Wright brothers, the people who put planes in the air right now, which seemed impossible for a certain period of time because it didn't exist on the planet. When you have this switch of attitude and you look at it in a completely different perspective, nobody can compete with you because every single time another person gets a no, then it's dropping their energy levels. Whereas for you, it's raising your vibration. It's raising your energy. Nobody can compete with that. So yeah, look at it from a different perspective. And that's everything for today's presentation. I hope that you can take some value from it and that you're excited for this next series of closing videos because I am as well. I don't know if you can tell, but this is some of the best things that I've learned over my experience and, you know, what's really helped me in being able to create the profits that I've been able to create and is going to help us make our first, you know, 7-figure month this year. So I'm really excited to help you all be a part of that as well and to get your results in your closing too, because this is gold, guys. Like, honestly, the philosophy is the 95%. So this is the video that I would really watch and rewatch. There's so much in here. There's so much value in here that has taken me years to simplify. And so I would watch, I would rewatch, I would make sure that you have got this to a point where you can not only take it in, but you can teach it back and get that level of understanding, because without understanding, you're never going to be able to apply. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll be seeing you on the next one where we'll go into a little bit more about strategy as opposed to just mindset and philosophy. So yeah, we'll see you there.